Hello, welcome back to Bioclass Bites. In this video, we are going to talk about concepts of an ecosystem. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like and share this video. Before we continue, I recommend that you visit this website from Global Change to talk more that talks more about the concept of the ecosystem. I'll provide the link in the description below. So we define an ecosystem as made up of biological community together with its physical and chemical environment. Okay? So an ecosystem is made up of the living components, biological community, and its non-living components, the physical and chemical factors. We also define an ecosystem as a geographic area wherein plants, animals, and other organisms, so those are the living factors, together with weather, landscape, and other non-living features, work together to form a bubble of life. You can find a lot of online resources about ecosystem, but one of my recommendations will be this article from National Geographic that talks about ecosystem. So you can find a lot of related images and text and information, and I'll provide the link in the description below. So if you still remember our lesson on levels of organization, ecosystem is one of the larger levels of organization. So it's actually made up of community. So those are several groups of organisms from different species. Okay, so community interacting with their physical environment. So that includes the living things and then their non-living things, non-living thing or non-living factors in their area. So that's the level of ecosystem. So actually, if you put all the ecosystems in the world, take it into factor it in, then you form the biosphere or that region of the earth that's capable of sustaining life. So here, another description of ecosystem as a level of organization. So a community together with the non-living environment forms an ecosystem. This one also, so another definition of ecosystem as a higher level of organization, several communities living together in a particular region, along with the physical environment. So living things, communities with physical environment. So this includes biotic and abiotic components. And examples of that would be a pond, forest, desert, just desert, single S, and grassland. So this one is from Britannica.com. I also recommend that you visit this and watch this video. Examine the trophic levels of producers, herbivores, and carnivores in a given ecosystem. So you will have a lot of fun information from this video. I'll provide the link in the description below. This one also from the virtual school, what is an ecosystem? Very fun, very interesting video. I'll provide the link in the description below. So the word ecosystem is actually a contraction of these two words, ecological system. So ecological system or ecosystem. So so in ecosystem, we try to understand how the entire system operates as a whole. Okay? So we will be focusing on the functional aspects of the system. How does the ecosystem function? So this includes amount of energy that is produced in photosynthesis, and we've talked about this in detail in bioenergetics, how energy or materials flow, and what controls the rate of decomposition, and how nutrients are cycled in an ecosystem. Ecosystems consist of living organisms existing in a symbiotic relationship with their environment. Okay, so when we say symbiotic, that's an interconnected relationship that's usually mutually beneficial to both parties. So life forms in ecosystems compete with one another to become the most successful at reproducing and surviving in a given niche or in their given ecological role or position in their environment. So the two main components that exist in an ecosystem are its abiotic and biotic factors or components. Okay, so abiotic components, these are the environment, the physical properties of the environment, the non-living component, while the biotic components are the life forms or the living organisms that occupy that ecosystem. So again, we define ecosystem as a unit consisting of plants, animals, and microscopic organisms. Okay, so that's your biotic factors in an area functioning together with the physical, non-living physical aspects. So those are your abiotic factors in an environment. So ecosystem, biotic, and abiotic factors. So these are examples or further classifications of the different factors or components. So for your abiotic factors, that include the climatic factors, and those are temperature and anything that's involved with climate. So temperature, humidity, atmospheric pressure, wind, and rainfall. While edaphic factors, so those are the soil or the ground features. So that's soil structure, soil pH, minerals, and even the topography of the ecosystem. Biotic factors are further divided into their ecological niche or the role they play. So you have your producers, which are also your autotrophs. So these are your photosynthetic plants and algae and phytoplankton. Consumers are your heterotrophs. Okay, so those are your herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, and detritivores. And then there are decomposers or your saprotrophs. So those are your fungi, decomposing bacteria, and water molds. Note that the word troph here means to feed. So your autotrophs, auto self, can feed themselves through photosynthesis. Hetero means others, so they need to feed on others. And then saprotrophs, they feed on decaying matter. So again, to emphasize, ecosystems have energy flows, okay? So that flow of energy is usually seen in food chain and food web, wherein the solar energy coming from the sun is captured by plants and converted to chemical energy through photosynthesis. So they are consumed by your herbivores and carnivores, so the energy is transferred to them, and then through cellular respiration, transformed into chemical energy in the form of ATP. And then when all these organisms die, eventually the decomposers will break down their physical bodies and then convert and recycle those materials into abiotic chemicals that can be used again in the ecosystem. Okay, so all of these processes also give off heat as byproduct. So in terms of energy, the Earth is an open system. However, in terms of matter, the Earth is considered a closed system. Therefore, the Earth must recycle all those materials. So this is where this part comes in. So decomposers must recycle all these materials to be used by the next group of organisms. Living organisms are capable of cycling and recycling materials in an ecosystem. So elements such as carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus enter living things, for example, plants. Once plants obtain these materials from their environment, so from the atmosphere, from the soil, that through their roots, while animals obtain these elements whenever they consume other organisms. So this is how photosynthesis and cellular respiration are interrelated and interconnected in transformation of energy in an ecosystem. So producers or autotrophs use capture solar energy and also use the following materials: water and carbon dioxide, which are then byproducts, is a byproduct of cellular respiration exhaled by animals, okay, to perform their light dependent and light independent reactions, all to produce that glucose molecule. They also produce oxygen as a byproduct. Um, how in cellular respiration, that byproduct by plants is actually one of the main materials needed for cellular respiration. So that glucose molecule will undergo glycolysis and then Krebs cycle and then electron transport chain, all just to harvest that ATP molecule that will be used by the cells to perform their life processes. So cellular respiration also again give off carbon dioxide as a byproduct and water as a byproduct. The next subtopic is ecological relationships. So in an ecosystem, species can have many different types of interactions with each other. By the way, this is always pronounced and written in plural form, species. Okay, even if you're just talking to one species, it must always have a letter S at the end. Okay, so this refers to a group of organisms so closely related with each other that they can interbreed and produce fertile offspring. So some of these interactions can help both of the species, some can help just one of the species, and some can be negative for one or both of the species. All of these interactions are needed to maintain balance in an ecosystem. And we call this as symbiotic relationship or symbiosis, wherein two species have a close relationship with each other. So symbiosis means to live together. So, an ecological community is defined as a group of actually or potentially interacting species living in the same place. And a community is or a group of several populations of different species is bound together by a network of influences that species have on one another. So, these are examples of those ecological relationships. And let's look at the signs in order for us to remember and then the effects of those relationships to both species. So we have mutualism. So to remember that positive, it means that both species benefit from the interaction. Commensalism, positive zero, one species benefits, the other one is unaffected. Competition, negative, each species are affected negatively. We'll see more about that later. And then parasitism, predation, and herbivory, positive, negative. One species benefits, the other one is disadvantaged. So to learn more about parasitism, commensalism, and mutualism, I recommend that you watch this video from Amoeba Sisters, Ecological Relationships. I'll provide the link in the description below. I also recommend that you visit this article from National Geographic, Ecological Relationships. They have a lot of information and examples and photos. Again, I'll provide the link in the description below. So mutualism describes ecological interaction between two or more species in which both of them or all of them benefits from the interaction. So this is thought to be the most common type of ecological interaction, and it is often dominant in most communities around the globe. So let's look at some of these examples. So we have here a red-billed oxpecker. Okay, so that's the bird here, which eats the ticks on the impalas or this organism, right? The horned organism. It eats ticks on the impala's coat in a cleaning symbiosis. Then dogs and sheep are among the first animals to be domesticated. So both dogs and sheep have mutualistic relationship with humans. So we take care of goats as pets. So in turn, we get protection from other harmful creatures. Okay, they protect us. While sheep, they have food and shelter. So that they get from humans who take care of them. In return, they provide their wool. They provide their wool for humans to harvest. Then hummingbird, hawk, moth drinking nectar from this plant, dianthus. So they get the nectar from the plant, but the plant on the other side um, get speeds up pollination because the hummingbird is one of its many pollinators. So they help each other. The plant provides the nectar for the bird, then the hummingbird allows pollination or lets pollination happen among the different plants. Then this clownfish and sea anemone, they have a mutualistic symbiotic relationship. So here, the fish um, The fish stays here in the anemone and have eventually adapted to be resistant to the stinging abilities of the sea anemone. Um, so it drives off butterfly fish, which is possibly one of the consumers of the sea anemone, while the sea anemone tentacles protects the fish from predators. So those are just one of the many examples of mutualism. So commensalism. So this is a type of relationship between two organisms in which one benefits and the other one does not. So this includes the commensal, the species that benefits, while the host is the unaffected organism. So we see here three frogs use the plants as protection. So the plants is the host, so they are not affected, while the frogs are the commensal species. So cattle egrets, they eat the insects stirred up by the cattle when they are grazing. So that makes them the commensal, while the cattle or the cows are not affected. Golden jackals, so that would be this dog-like, similar to dogs or related to dogs organism. Once they have been expelled from a pack, will trail a tiger to feed on the remains of its kill. So the commensal there will be the jackal, the golden jackal, and then because it is the one that benefits from the remains of the kills of the tiger, and then the tiger is the host because it's not affected whatsoever. Next will be competition. So this is an interaction between organisms or species, which both of the species are harmed in the process. So this is because of limited supply of one resource, such as food and water, or sometimes even mates, okay, or females in the species, and they're used both, and use by both species can also be a factor for their competition. So examples of that would be a male lion and spotted hyena. So both of them have the same ecological niche. So they have the same ecological roles in the ecosystem. So they are in competition with each other. So sea anemones compete for the food. So one sea anemone competes with other sea anemone for food, for the territory in their location. Then we have here hartebeest. So those are two male hartebeests locking horns, fiercely defending their territories, and sometimes the females of their territories. So they would fight, and then whoever wins will get to keep the territory. So that's one example of competition. And then we have here flamingos. Okay, so they are competing for territories, mates, or food. So they're fighting with each other for those limited resources. Then predation is an interaction wherein one organism, the predator, kills and eats the other, its prey. So predator is the one that hunts, prey is the one being hunted. So predators are adapted for highly specialized hunting. So that allows them to have very acute senses, vision, speed, hearing, or overall power. So we have here our favorite bird, the peregrine falcon, eating its prey, a smaller bird, possibly a pigeon. So the predator, peregrine falcon, and then the prey. So we also have microscopic predation. So the paramecium is feeding off on the bacteria in this microscopic view, okay, around it. Then we also have social predators, okay? So such as wolves, so they hunt by pack. They cooperate with each other to hunt and kill bison, which is one of their many preys. So you can actually search online for more examples. Very interesting predation. Parasitism is a relationship between species where one of the organism lives off on the other. So that's the parasite, and the host is the one that is caused harm, right? Causing it some harm, and parasites are adapted structurally to this way of life. So parasites are typically smaller than their host, and a true parasite does not kill its host because why would you kill the one that provides you food? So it does not kill. They just make them sick, but they do not kill them. So for example, here the protozoan Trypanosoma Okay, it's the parasite that feeds on the red blood cells. Okay, or in the entire human body. So leaf spot on oak tree. So here, the spread of the parasitic fungus. So that's the parasite. Um, they're limited by the defensive properties of the tree. Okay, so the tree eventually adapted uh, chemical defensive chemicals to counter the parasitic fungus. So as you can see, there are some parts that do not have the fungus. There are some who are scattered with fungi. Then human head lice, as you can see here, are 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 directly transmitted obligate ectoparasite. So ectoparasite, they're found outside the body, ecto outside. So they are examples of parasites in humans. And then we can see here a microscopic view of the scolex or the head of the tapeworm Taenasolium, an intestinal parasite, so internal parasite. As you can see here, they have these hooks and suckers that allows them to attach to the gastrointestinal tract of humans, their host. So that ends our video. I hope you learned something new today. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like and share this video. Till next time, goodbye.